enforcers of law who are tasked with maintaining public order, protecting individuals and property, and preventing and investigating crimes. That is what being a police officer means, or at least that's what they are trying to do. Instances have aroused where police officers have misused their authority, employed excessive force, and violated people's rights, particularly those from marginalized communities, leading to distrust and fear of law enforcement. Are they subjected to such power? What are the legal repercussions for them, however? And most of all, would they be treated differently when compared to the masses? Join us as we take a closer look at two of the most uncanny cases that could make question the judicial system as a whole. Our first case kicks off with the case of Harold Hill, which is just a perfect example of how our justice system can go wrong. This case definitely checks all the boxes, including a horrific rape and murder, as well as a mishandled conviction, you name it. So then what went about? Let's start with the so-called beacons of justice, Kenneth Bordeaux and John Halloran, the detectives who were assigned to the case and the beacons of law. They were the ones who managed to extract a confession from Peter Williams, who was later discovered to have been in custody when the crime was committed. How did they even produce a fabricated confession from someone who wasn't even present? Hill claims he was physically and mentally tortured until he confessed to crimes he didn't commit. Is this the kind of conduct we anticipate from our law enforcement personnel? The trial itself was held when Hill was 31 years old, despite the fact that he was only 16 at the time of the crime and was therefore tried as an adult. At this point, it's just not fair, and it's incomprehensible what Hill is going through. Given that neither of the defendants had a criminal history prior to the incident, this is an intriguing move by the prosecution. Hill and Young were given a life without parole sentence after the jury found them guilty of the murder. However, 13 long years later, DNA tests showed that neither of the defendants' cellular components found under Kathy Morgan's fingernails, nor the hair found at the crime scene matched either of them. Imagine the sheer suffering Hill endured for something he didn't do. It continues to amaze me how Hill managed to hang on to his life. The prosecutors disputed the findings despite this evidence, claiming that the hairs had nothing to do with the crime and that the cellular material might have come from sweat or drool that the recovery teams had left behind. Even in the face of such overwhelming evidence, it's shocking that the prosecutors were so resistant. Young was killed in a hit-and-run incident shortly after Harold and Young were finally let out of jail. This almost leads us to believe that this is almost a plot to clip both of them. Hill, on the other hand, accused the city of Chicago, the police, and the two detectives involved in the case of coercing a confession and violating his civil rights in a complaint he filed against them. The case was resolved for $1.25 million, of which Hill received $500,000 and the remainder was paid to the lawyers. It's surprising that the detectives were only asked to make a pitiful $7,500 payment for their roles in this whole fiasco. You think that's all? Wait until you hear this. It should be noted that Hill is currently serving a 27-year sentence after being found guilty once more of an unrelated charge of armed robbery. In spite of this, it is obvious that Harold Hill was let down by the legal system in the past. This case emphasizes the need for justice system reform to prevent erroneous convictions and make sure that those who abuse their power are held accountable. Starting with the investigation and continuing through the trial and conviction, the Harold Hill case is a tragedy of errors. Hill was wrongfully detained for 13 years, and because the system made him a criminal, he was never given the opportunity to adapt to life outside of prison. He was completely screwed over by the system, and the police only received $7,500 each. When police officers commit acts like the ones they did, they should be imprisoned for a minimum of the same amount of time as the victims they imprisoned. Up next, we have an oddball in the form of Sergeant Mario Cardona versus Daniel Garza. After being thrown and pinned to the ground, Daniel Garza was rendered helpless. Officer Mario Cardona, a longtime friend of Garza's, was on the verge of breaking his wrist. Confronting a criminal and keeping him confined is one thing, but putting a civilian without a reason is shocking. Garza recalled, I was trying to be a man and trying to hold in the pain, but man, that wrist lock hurts. He's just bending it and bending it. But why did Cardona go so far as to nearly break his wrist? His actions were apparently driven by rage toward Garza, whom he accuses of attempting to kidnap his stepdaughter. But are cops subjected to such an authority in the first place? It appears that the two men had a long history together because Garza had once dated Naomi Villanueva, the stepdaughter of Cardona. Villanueva left her parents' home to live with a friend because the relationship had reached its breaking point. However, Villanueva was allegedly taken from her friend's home in May 2015 by Garza without her consent and brought to her parents' residence in Whittier, where Cardona lived across the street. Garza was performing pilates in his garden when Cardona saw him and told him to go to the street. Cardona started his assault as soon as Garza sat down. Garza claimed that he was not the aggressor, and a neighbor who saw the incident attested to Garza's innocence. As soon as they arrived on the scene, the sheriff's deputies saw redness on Garza's face, bruises and abrasions on his knees, and redness on his wrist. After Garza complained about Cardona, the city of Los Angeles, Chief Beck, and Cardona were named as defendants in a federal lawsuit. Garza claimed that he had been the victim of a false arrest, an arbitrary search and seizure, overuse of force, an assault and battery, negligence, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The trial also featured a video of the incident captured by one of Garza's neighbors. They had made up a story of what had happened to make him look like a hero, and me look like a criminal, Daniel Garza. The hearing was presided over by U.S. District Judge Stephen V. Wilson, who heard former Deputy City Attorney Michael Amarian speak in defense of the city. Cardona was found to have acted maliciously as an off-duty officer by the jury, and on June 26, 2017, he was ordered to pay Garza $210,000 in damages. In addition, the court added $664,000 in attorney's fees and $26,000 in post-trial costs. The city of L.A. refused to take responsibility for Cardona's actions and even refused to indemnify the officer, forcing him to pay for the charges out of his pocket. Jim DeSimone, Garza's attorney, claims, "This is the problem with the LAPD. This is why people are out on the street." The incident serves as an example of how police can abuse people and get away with it. In this instance, however, Garza was able to confront the authorities who had infringed upon his rights and prevail in his lawsuit against Cardona. It is clear that police officers cannot get away with using excessive force against citizens after the jury found Cardona guilty of malice. It is important to note that this case also emphasizes how crucial it is for citizens to be aware of their rights and to speak out against law enforcement when they believe those rights have been violated. Garza's decision to accuse Cardona of using excessive force and file a complaint against him demonstrates that people can take legal action to stop police brutality. What do you think of these cases? Which do you think is most unfair? Sound off in the comments below and make sure to let us know if we missed out on anything. While you are at it, make sure to hit that subscribe and leave a like to never miss an update from us. Thanks for watching.
On June 26, 2020, Karen Gardner, a 73-year-old woman suffering from dementia and sensory aphasia, was stopped by Walmart employees after she left the store without paying for items worth approximately $14. Video footage captured Miss Gardner walking out of the store with the items in her hands, and she was soon brought back inside by the employees. Subsequently, Miss Gardner attempted to pay for the items, but Walmart employees refused her service and asked her to leave immediately. Compliance with their request, Miss Gardner left the store. However, one of the Walmart employees contacted the Loveland Police Department to report the alleged theft. A few minutes later, Officer Austin Hoop responded to the call and located Miss Gardner as she was walking home after the incident. Officer Hoop parked his patrol car behind her and approached to stop her. Unfortunately, the situation escalated negatively. Officer Hoop failed to effectively communicate with Miss Gardner, and he resorted to violently throwing her to the ground in an attempt to place her in handcuffs. This action was unjustified as Miss Gardner displayed no signs of being a threat to Officer Hoop and did not attempt to flee. Instead, she continued walking, which did not warrant such a forceful takedown. In fact, Officer Hoop's approach appeared misplaced from the beginning as he asked the visibly confused Miss Garner an unnecessary question. Do you need to be arrested right now?
Do you need to be arrested right now? No. Okay.
After successfully placing Miss Garner in handcuffs, Officer Hoop proceeded to guide her back to the patrol car. Unfortunately, during this process, he continued to employ excessive force on her and attempted to insinuate that she had been engaged in a physical altercation with him.
Why are you fighting with me? And why are you trying to slip the cuffs off?
I'm going home.
The video from the officer's body camera proved to be beyond a reasonable doubt that Miss Garner and Officer Hoop never came close to a physical altercation. It's obvious that Officer Hoop didn't need to use so much force to keep a 73-year-old woman in custody. In addition, it's important to highlight that Officer Hoop apparently did not take into account the detainee's mental state, which is a significant issue. Officer Hoop obviously disregarded the legal requirement that police use their discretion to determine whether or not a suspect is mentally competent.
I'm going home. I'm going home.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to search her.
As if the force employed by one cop wasn't already severe, a second confrontation broke out as cop Daria Jalali arrived to aid Officer Hoop, resulting in Miss Garner being taken to the ground again. Both officers proceeded to secure Miss Garner inside the patrol car, despite her repeated statements that she was simply trying to go home. Officer Hoop responded to her pleas with a dismissive laugh, stating, "No, you're not," in a mocking manner.
You have to use that much aggression?
What are you doing? Get out of here. This is not your business.
Once again, Hoop's negligent demeanor became evident as he dealt with the situation. While Officer Hoop moved to the other side of the patrol car to secure Miss Garner, a Good Samaritan emerged from his vehicle and approached Officer Hoop, questioning the necessity of using aggression against an elderly woman.
What's your date of birth, Karen? What's your date of birth? Okay.
The young man had witnessed the entire incident unfold from a distance and decided to drive up to the scene. Officer Hoop, displaying further negligence, dismissed the young man's concerns, instructing him to leave as it was none of his business. Following a brief confrontation, Officer Hoop returned to assisting Officer Jolly in securing Miss Garner. Once they successfully placed Miss Garner inside the patrol car, Officer Hoop attempted to identify her by asking for her date of birth. However, he received no response, indicating Miss Garner was unable to provide the requested information. Given Miss Garner's disability, it is unsurprising that she would encounter difficulties understanding Officer Hoop's demands, let alone recalling her date of birth. Both officers appear to overlook the possibility of Miss Garner having a disability, despite it becoming increasingly evident by that point. Shortly after, the officers engaged in a casual conversation, during which Officer Jalali expressed her concerns for Officer Hoop, stating that she would have arrived more quickly if he had mentioned a physical altercation.
200. Yeah, okay.
All right,
Hey.
let's get her down the stairs.
Okay, we don't need to wait for the fellow.
No, we can see what he, I
Okay.
mean, we know what's it said.
She stole some stuff, and they caught her before she left and got it back, and then she ran out. So we have
And then you contacted her for that.
And then she resisted and
Obstructed and
obstructed.
resisted. So
we're good either way.
we're good either way.
Cool.
She's going.
All right.
Get a path. If they decide not to prosecute, I don't care.
Cool. Okay, we'll head down there.
Officer Hoop responded to Officer Jalali's concerns by making remarks about Miss Garner, commenting that she was like 20 pounds, and implying that the situation would have been different if it had involved a larger individual. This statement indicates that Officer Hoop was well aware of Miss Garner's fragile state as an elderly woman, yet he still exhibited excessive aggression toward her. The situation becomes even more questionable when both officers display uncertainty about the potential charges against Miss Garner. Officer Jalali appears to have no understanding of what Miss Garner could have done wrong initially. Sergeant Phil Metzler, the fourth responding officer, informs Officer Hoop that Miss Garner would be charged with resisting arrest and obstruction, regardless of whether or not Walmart decided to press charges. Immediately following the incident, Officer Hoop, Officer Jalali, and Community Service Officer Tyler Blackett were captured by a police station surveillance camera, engaging in laughter and joking while watching the footage of the arrest from Officer Hoop's body camera. On May 19, 2021, the Colorado 8th Judicial District Critical Response Team completed an investigation into the incident, leading to the filing of criminal charges against Officer Hoop and Officer Jalali. Officer Hoop faced 3 charges, including assault. However, on March 2, 2022, Officer Hoop pleaded guilty to a single charge of second-degree assault, classified as a Class 4 felony. Consequently, he received a 5-year prison sentence. Meanwhile, Officer Jalali pleaded guilty to 1 count of failure to intervene in Larimer County District Court in June of the same year. As a result, she was sentenced to 45 days in jail and placed under 36 months of probation. However, despite the clarification provided by Mr. Hodges when he displayed his cane from his back pocket to Deputy Goad, she continued to pursue him. It became evident that Deputy Goad lacked probable cause to detain Mr. Hodges, as her suspicion of him carrying a firearm was disproven.
What's this in your back pocket? I just saw you walking it.
For navigational aids. What's the problem? You a tyrant?
Yeah, I am actually. What's your name and date of birth?
I don't have to give that unless
Yes,
I'm
sir.
good.
I was
You
investigating.
have reasonable,
Do you want me to
articulated
put you in
suspicion.
handcuffs right now? Yes, sir, I do.
What is your suspicion?
It looks like you're carrying a gun in your back pocket. I'm stopping to make sure you're carrying it properly. You
Well,
don't
have
have
you
to.
ensured that it's not a firearm?
No, you keep turning so I can't see it. You don't have to be a dick to me.
Well, you're being one to me.
No, sir, I'm
Have a
doing my
good
job.
day. Am I detained?
Yeah, you are.
Nevertheless, Deputy Goad proceeded to inform Mr. Hodges that he was being detained and demanded his identification, asking for his name and date of birth. Mr. Hodges questioned the necessity of providing his personal information, stating that he had not committed any crime. In response, he requested the presence of Deputy Goad's supervisor, who coincidentally arrived at that moment.
What thought for?
For a walking stick.
And it could look like a weapon. She asked you to
Really?
present it, okay?
Now she's asking me for ID.
Okay.
I don't need the ID unless
Okay.
there's reasonable, articulated suspicion
And her
that I have committed a crime and committing a crime
And
or
her-
about to do a crime.
Sergeant Randy Harrison approached Mr. Hodges and promptly inquired about the reason for Deputy Goad's initial stop. Mr. Hodges explained the circumstances to Sergeant Harrison, who in turn demanded identification from Mr. Hodges as well.
you were armed, okay? And she's asking you for your ID.
Well, now
Right.
she has verified that I am not armed.
Okay?
So there is no
you got
problem.
your ID or not?
I do have my ID, but
Okay.
you don't need it.
Okay? Right? Okay?
Initially, Deputy Goad may have possessed a reasonable suspicion to stop Mr. Hodges if she genuinely believed that the item protruding from his back pocket was a firearm. However, once it became unequivocally evident that Mr. Hodges was not carrying any firearms, any further detainment would be considered unlawful. Despite this realization, Deputy Goad and her supervisor, Sergeant Harrison, collaborated to handcuff Mr. Hodges and conduct a search of his pockets. Mr. Hodges requested the names and badge numbers of both officers, but neither of them responded to his demand.
Wallet there. Where's your wallet at, sir?
I don't have a wallet on me.
Okay, where's your ID?
Where's your
It's in
ID
my
at?
pocket.
Which pocket?
You are not allowed to search me.
It's in this pocket.
There you go.
Thank you.
It is important to note that throughout the ordeal, the officers did not show any concern regarding the cane that initiated the encounter. The cane remained in Mr. Hodges' back pocket during the entire confrontation, and neither of the two officers displayed any interest in it, even when Mr. Hodges pulled it out in front of them. This further emphasizes that the cane was never the underlying issue. The officers had other, seemingly trivial reasons to detain Mr. Hodges. After engaging in back-and-forth communication over the police radio, Deputy Goad approached Mr. Hodges once again, attempting to assert unnecessary authority and further escalate the situation. She questioned him, asking if it was challenging for him to comply.
Are you legally blind? Yes, I am.
Okay.
I had to walk up here in the dark for jury duty, which was canceled. But you're using your stick. You don't have to use a stick all the time? Not all the time.
Mr. Hodges was arrested and charged with resisting without violence, as indicated by jail records that show his booking at 8:25 a.m. that morning. He was released 26 hours later. 2 days following his release, Mr. Hodges submitted a records request for the body camera footage on November 7, 2022. The viral video that circulated clearly demonstrated that Mr. Hodges had not engaged in any actions warranting arrest. An arrest report authored by Deputy Goad, she stated that James had violated Florida Statute 843.02 by obstructing an ongoing investigation. According to her report, Mr. Hodges repeatedly refused to allow identification of the object in his pocket and declined to provide his ID. However, the body camera footage contradicted her account, showing that Mr. Hodges promptly and willingly presented the object from his pocket to both officers. Miss Odom's claims that Mr. Clark had assaulted her, resulted in a bloody altercation, turned out to be unfounded. When the officers arrived at the scene, there was no evidence of blood or visible injuries. Moreover, had the officers requested a background check on Miss Odom, they would have discovered her extensive history of encounters with the law. This included a 2016 conviction for fraud in the first degree, multiple felony charges of aggravated domestic assault, and even an attempted murder charge, which she apparently remained influenced by. The actions taken by Officers Hanning and Summers demonstrated a clear neglect of the usual protocols during the encounter.
I literally just saw banged on the door, or through the wall. Bam, 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 and I'm sleeping. Shut the f*** up!
They seemed to accept Miss Odom's account without questioning her, despite the evident fact that she was intoxicated and lacked clarity. After speaking with Miss Odom and Mr. Braden, the officers proceeded to approach Mr. Clark, who resided next door. Following a few knocks on Mr. Clark's door, he opened it while holding a collectible sawfish snout sword, which had been a gift from his late brother-in-law. Mr. Clark had retrieved the sword with the sole intention of self-defense, expecting a confrontation with Miss Odom rather than the arrival of police attempting to resolve the matter. Given the circumstances, Mr. Clark was entirely justified in opening the door with a weapon in hand, as the officers had not identified themselves as law enforcement, a requirement mandated by law prior to such encounters. Despite the situation de-escalating when Mr. Clark complied by placing the weapon on a shelf and facing the officers, Officer Hanning made an attempt to tackle him by kicking his leg and punching his head. It was apparent at this point that Mr. Clark did not pose a threat to the officers. Officer Hanning had sufficient time and opportunity to detain Mr. Clark after he had put away the sword. However, instead of doing so, Officer Hanning retreated and proceeded to draw his firearm. Mr. Clark, remaining motionless with his hands clearly visible, demonstrated that he held nothing that could potentially harm anyone.
What do you want? What the fuck?
It was at this moment that Officer Hanning, without providing any warning, aimed his taser at Mr. Clark's stomach and discharged it. It's important to note the conflicting demands issued by the two officers. Officer Hanning instructed Mr. Clark to walk into the hallway, while Officer Summers simultaneously told him to get on the ground. As Mr. Clark fell backward, his head made contact with a chair, rendering him unconscious. The situation worsened when both officers attempted to move Mr. Clark's body outside, resulting in his head striking the corner of a shelf, which caused a laceration on his head. Furthermore, Officer Hanning employed unnecessary force by placing his knee on Mr. Clark's neck while restraining him with handcuffs. Reports indicated that his knee restraint led to an injury to Mr. Clark's carotid artery, necessitating surgical intervention for treatment. It is notable that this particular knee restraint has been associated with several fatalities in the past. As Officer Summers attended to Mr. Clark in an attempt to revive him, Officer Hanning had a different agenda.
Get out here right now! Get out here!
Get on the ground!
No. They hit that wall so hard, I thought they were going to come through the wall.
He re-entered Mr. Clark's apartment and took hold of the sword that had been placed on top of the shelf. The reasoning behind Officer Hanning's actions may have been unclear at first, but it became evident with his subsequent actions. Officer Hanning positioned the sword approximately 5 feet away from where Mr. Clark lay unconscious, creating the illusion that Mr. Clark had walked out of his apartment wielding the sword with the intent to attack the officers. Following the use of unlawful force, Mr. Clark was swiftly transported to the hospital, where tests for drugs or alcohol came back negative. His initial vital signs indicated the possibility of heart-related complications, and he required stitches for a head wound. Within 24 hours of the incident, Mr. Clark developed a blood clot in his injured carotid artery and began vomiting blood. Additionally, 12 hours later, he suffered a stroke. Approximately 48 hours after being discharged, Mr. Clark found himself readmitted to the hospital due to complications arising from the initial surgery. Consequently, Mr. Clark pursued legal action and reached a settlement agreement with the Idaho Springs Police Department, amounting to a remarkable sum of $7 million. This record-breaking payout exceeds the settlement awarded to Karen Gardner in September 2021.